plaintiffs call Dr. Cruz Gniady to the stand.
Before you've been sworn, if you'll come and have a seat here to my right.
Please state your name for the record, sir.
Chris Gniady,
So I'm going to spell his last name.
Gniady.
And Dr. Gniady, could you please tell us a little bit about your education?
I graduated from Purdue University with a degree in electrical engineering.
I'm sorry, graduated from
Purdue University with a Bachelor in ECE, Electrical and Computer Engineering. Then I went on to grad school, graduated with PhD again in Electrical and Computer Engineering. Over my career, I did research related to computers, operating system, file systems.
And what is your present occupation, Dr. Gniady?
I'm an associate professor at the University of Arizona,
In which department?
computer science.
And what sort of courses do you teach in that department?
Operating systems, computer hardware, energy management courses, green computing.
what management courses?
Energy management?
And green computing, you said?
Yes.
Okay. And Dr. Gniady, have you been published in the field of computer science?
Yes, I have. I have about 30 publications related to energy management and operating system, file systems.
Okay. Your Honor, we'd like to move that Dr. Cruz Gniady be admitted as an expert in the field of computer science.
You want to go there with please?
Yes, Your Honor, the defendants would object this time with the court liking to voir dire.
Go ahead.
Okay. Dr. I apologize, Gniady?
Gniady.
Gniady.
Yes.
Gniady, okay.
I know it's hard to pronounce.
Okay. Dr. Gniady, what experience do you have with respect to elections software?
I testified in, I think it was 2007, with respect to GEMS security and databases accessing. At that point, around 2007, I examined basic GEMS software.
Examine what kind of software?
GEMS, it's tabulating software for the back then Diebold company.
And in what capacity did you testify?
As an expert witness with respect to security of the database files managed by GEMS.
Security of database files?
Yes, the Microsoft Access database.
And who retained you for that testimony?
I think John Brady was involved in that case, and I was retained by it's been 8 years ago. I'm sorry. I know. That's all right. I think John Brady was the first one to contact me as far as I know.
Okay, and has that been the only time that you've testified with respect to any election
That's correct.
type of software? And what have you done since then?
Well, I continue teaching at the University of Arizona.
And have you had any involvement with the GEM system since your
No, I
testimony?
have not.
So it's been over, you said 2007-ish?
2007.
Okay, so for 7 years, you haven't had any involvement with GEM software?
No.
Have you, you haven't testified about it, but have you had done any research with respect to the GEM software?
Once the case was concluded, I stopped the investigation.
Okay, and was your testimony, were you paid to testify in 2007?
No, I have not.
In 2007, you just testified free?
Yes.
Okay, are you doing so free as well today?
Yes.
What's the name of the software, did you say? Genesis?
GEMS, G-E-M-S, all capital letters.
GEMS software.
Now, Dr. Gniady, have you kept up to date in the field of computer science?
Absolutely.
And have some of
Your Honor, I wasn't done questioning. Okay.
My apologies.
Doctor, have you, so what, you haven't testified in over 7 years about the GEM software. What's been your exposure to that software in the last 7 years?
0.
Okay.
Dr. Lee?
I'm not done.
Okay. Just tell me when you are.
That's the way it works. But nothing further. No.
Okay. Dr. Gniady, have you kept up to date with developments in the field of computer science?
Absolutely, that's a requirement.
And obviously developments in the field of systems architecture as well?
Systems and operating systems.
And do you feel as if having been kept up to date this way, you're now able to evaluate the GEM software today?
Given the software, the current software, yes, I am.
Okay. No further questions, John? Or at least with regard to Gniady.
He'll be approved as an expert.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Gniady. So, now, Dr. Gniady, before we get into more specific questions, are you able to discuss in general terms the system architecture of the central tabulator computer and the election system? And specifically, what I'd like to know is, how does the central tabulator computer, right, which is the computer that we were talking about today, is it like the computer I have on my desk in my office, or how is it the same or different?
Okay, so again, I'll be basing this on previous experience. I don't know what systems are currently being used by the county or the election.
Your Honor, the state would object to the determination that this is an expert witness. He's not even familiar with the system that's been currently used in the county.
He's only been approved as a computer expert in the arena of systems and operating systems, are allowed to testify in general, noting that he's not familiar with the current system being used by the county.
So, with respect to the two different systems, right, the system that I have sitting on my desk and the system that the county has sitting in their Polk County Center, you know, how are they the same, how are they different?
Objection, Your Honor, he doesn't know what system is in the county. It hasn't been established that he knows what system is in the county,
Your Honor,
being used by the county.
we have to inspect the system for him to review the system. I mean, it's sort of a chicken and egg problem to say, but maybe we should ask by saying, you know, to your knowledge, has the GEM system changed very much in the interim? To your knowledge?
To my knowledge, no, the software has been upgraded, but the basic system features, computers have not.
So it's been made more secure with the software?
Objection, Your Honor. We're not talking about generalization, we're talking about the Santa Cruz County system, I believe. If he wants to testify to nationally or internationally electoral voting systems, but that's not an issue. What's an issue is what Santa Cruz County's using, and he testified that he has no knowledge of what Santa Cruz County's using.
Right, you can't testify as Santa Cruz County and what they're using.
I'm sorry, Judge, what?
He cannot testify to Santa Cruz County and what they're using because he has no familiarity. But he can testify in general, the difference between one type of operating system and another.
So in general, Dr. Gniady, a GEMS vote tabulating machine and the machine that I have on my desk, that system, would you please describe for us the similarities and the differences, or are they very much alike?
They're very much alike. They consist of a computer, a monitor, keyboard, a mouse. You are able to log into the system just like you are on your desktop. The system is connected either by the modems or by the votes are delivered by the data card. You're able to access them, view them on the screen. GEM software is running on top of the machine. It's using Access database, Microsoft Access database. You're able to view, tabulate the votes, pretty much just like any other software you use on your personal computer. The same security features are present in it's Windows-based system. You have logins, you have passwords, etc.
Okay. Now, with regards to connectivity, the computer in my office is connected to the internet. In your experience, are GEMS operating systems that are used in elections connected to the internet?
They should not be, and they usually are not. The way of delivering votes is through modems, which are not generally connected to internet, and through secure data cards, so the system should not be connected.
Now, if the system is not connected to the internet, it needs to be hacked in person if someone is going to hack it, isn't that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, and that means having physical access to the machine, does it not?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Microsoft Access a little bit. What is Microsoft Access?
Microsoft Access is a Microsoft product. It's a database management software that you create databases, input information, generate reports, basically a database functionality from Microsoft.
Okay. And is this Microsoft Access product, in your experience, installed in every system?
It has to be purchased. It's additional software that comes as a part of the operating system. So you have Microsoft Office, and Microsoft Access comes with it.
Is it installed in every GEM system, in your experience?
GEMS uses Microsoft Access databases. You do not need Microsoft Access to be installed.
Oh, so just,
It does not use what?
It uses the databases using Microsoft Access. The Microsoft Access software does not need to be installed in GEMS systems.
now we've talked a lot about GEMS. Can you give us a general overview of what GEMS is?
GEMS is a basic tabulating software that you collect the votes. The votes are uploaded to a machine, that you do the elections, that you calculate the outcomes of the election, generate reports, and basically run the election.
Now, have you, let me. Maybe I need the exhibit. Go on, check that. Forgive me. So let me bring up, may I approach her? Okay. I'd like to direct your attention to what's been marked Exhibit A. Okay. With respect to Exhibit A, Dr. Gniady, have you had a chance to review that document?
Yes, I have.
And what is that document?
It's a request for metadata and other information about electoral system.
And it's Plaintiff's public records request as well?
Excuse me?
It's Plaintiff's public record request?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll identify that separately as well later. Okay, so I want to direct your attention specifically to the items of metadata that have been requested. You had said GEM system can be used for a lot of things, calculating the outcomes of the election, et cetera, et cetera. In your review of this request, in your opinion as a computer expert, if plaintiffs get any of this information, will they be able to do things like calculate the outcomes of elections?
No.
Okay. All right, now let's go down the list. Let's go down the list one by one. But before we do that, can you describe a little bit for us what the difference is between metadata and data?
So data is user-generated, describes events, for example, non-account votes, images, things like that. Metadata is information describing the files, properties of the files, timestamps, who created the file, when it was created. So it is information generated by the operating systems to keep track of files and allow sort of monitoring who has access, modify it at all time.
Now, would you say that this metadata is necessary to maintain an accurate knowledge of the way that the system is working?
It is critical for locating the files. If you lose metadata, depending what portions you lose, you might not be able to find the files in the system anymore.
Okay. So now let's go down the list a little bit. Well, let me see if I understand correctly the distinction first, right? So what you're telling me is metadata, that's kind of like my home address. And data, that's kind of like the contents of my mailbox and inside the envelopes. Is that an accurate description?
Roughly. So your metadata will be description. This is your address where you find the letter. This is your name. Excuse me. And whatever is inside the envelope, which is sealed, that will be the actual data.
Okay, and have plaintiffs requested, in your view as computer expert, looking at 1 through 5, access to any actual data?
Looking at those and reading the content, I do not believe there is actual data being released.
Okay. to direct your attention to request number 5, which is for an electronic copy of the electronic tabulator computer directory. Can you please describe in layman's terms, in your opinion as a computer expert, what this request means?
Based on our request for metadata, the copy of the directory is a copy of metadata contained that describes what files are present in the directory, when they were accessed, when they were created, modified, and who the owner of the file is. This is purely metadata releasing information that, like I mentioned, is related to file names and permissions.
So in other words, data like when the file was created, who printed it, that sort of thing?
Not printed.
No,
created.
but when it was created, okay. In your opinion as a computer expert, is there any way that granting this request would compromise the system security of the county? No. Oh, sorry, was that?
No.
Okay. And does that change depending on whether the system is connected to the internet? Is that an evaluation?
No, this one does not.
Now let's look at request number 6, to which I'd like you to direct your attention. Request number 6 is for electronic copies of the Windows event logs and backup files, if present, Diebold Central Tabulator computers. And quoting so from the request, these are the machines that run the Diebold GEMS Central Tabulator application. These are normally 3 per system, titles System, Application, and Security. Please provide these requests in a .csv format. Okay. Wow. As a computer expert, in your opinion as a computer expert, could you please describe in layman's terms, be gentle, what this request is for?
This thing asks for a log, which is basically who logged into the system, what applications were executed, and also the applications and basic secure information. These logs can be used, for example, to track security breaches into the system, for example, unauthorized logins, multiple logins attempts that failed, and assist in basically system diagnosis as far as security, what applications are on, etc.
Okay, well, that sounds like it could touch on system security. So could you tell us, in your opinion as a computer expert, does this request have any negative implications if granted for the system security of the county?
No, it does not.
And why is that?
If somebody has access to them, they can figure out if there was a security breach to the system based on events in the system, how the system was accessed, and detecting patterns. This does not tell you how to break into the system.
No,
I'm sorry, this is not.
Tell you how to break. It is only used to detect potential security faults with logins and any kind of errors, login errors, access errors, and general pattern of accesses to the system.
I'd like to now direct your attention to request number 7, which is a request for electronic copies of the GEMS audit logs, and I'm quoting from the request, for the central tabulator data files involved in either the setup or execution of the last 5 elections printed to the electronic PDF file. Again, in layman's terms, in your opinion as a computer expert, would you please describe what this request is for?
GEMS audit logs are the logs maintained by the GEMS software. It describes what databases were created, how they were accessed, what was tabulated, who logged in, when it was logged in. It's basically a record of all the events related to conducting an election on the GEMS procedure.
Now, if this request is granted, do plaintiffs get a vote count out of it?
No.
But can plaintiffs get what
A
out of it?
vote count out of it? What was your answer to that?
No.
No. Okay. And in your opinion, does this have, as a computer expert, does this have any negative implications for the county's data security if this request were to be granted?
No, it does not.
And why is that?
It's a log of events, so the slightest security issue is if you know that somebody logged in at 8 a.m. every day, you don't jump that person. That could be on the information. Everything else is just events with respect to how the system was used to conduct election, population, login. It does not tell you login information, passwords, any information used to log in or access the database.
Now, does item number 7, does that have the, or sorry, does item number 6, which we're talking about, have the potential to tell us who printed what when?
Can you ask again?
Does item number 6, which we're discussing, have the potential to tell us who printed something? Or, I'm sorry, when something was printed, for instance? Anything like that?
As far as printing number 7? or
6, please.
I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. Now, with respect to request number 7, which is the GEM audit log, okay, this is one of the major points. It's a request for, and I quote from the request, electronic copies of the GEM's audit logs for the central tabulator data files involved in the, oh, right, so we just talked about that. Number 7, does that give any potential to tell printing?
It will give you information about the report being generated.
Okay.
I don't know what tells you the print.
Not physical printing, but maybe it's a form of electronic printing, then, is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay, great. And then, now we're going to take a look at request number 8, which is a request for, and I quote from the request, a copy for each folder list of all folders from each of the central account computers that contain GEM's database and backup files, showing all databases and backup files, as well as any other files continued in those folders. All file types, all dates of creation, all dates last modified, all dates last accessed, and all sizes. These should be produced as text files on CD or portable disk drive in the presence of Democratic Party observers and under their supervision. Again, in your opinion as a computer expert, would you please tell me in layman's terms what you think this means?
This means a list of the files. So for example, what file names are used. So if you have 1,000 pictures, there will be a list of file names associated with 1,000 pictures. In this case, these are files part of the software, which is standard names, and also names of the databases used as a software. Their creation time, when the database was created, when the software was installed. Timestamp of when they are accessed and modified. This is metadata describing, just like we talked in case of 5, content of the directory and properties of the files.
Okay. And do I understand correctly that this is not a request for the contents of any file? Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay. So it's like, in other words, again, tell me if I've got this analogy correct. If I fire up my computer and the Windows Start screen, I see all of the programs there, right on my desktop, but I don't see any of the contents. I don't see the Word documents. I don't see the Word files, anything like that. Is that a rough analogy?
Right, you would see the names of your Internet Explorer, Microsoft Word.
I'm sorry, you would see the name of?
For example, Internet Explorer or Microsoft Word present on your desktop. You would also see with this all our files that are necessary to execute Microsoft Word or Internet Explorer, their libraries, but the file names again. Just all the files needed for application execution.
And in your opinion, as a computer expert, if this request were to be granted, would there be any negative implications for the county's data security?
No, these are generally common names. System information, our standard. GEM software will use a standard name just like any other installation. So the security implications are not there.
What's the value of knowing when the files are created or modified, in your opinion, as a computer expert?
For example, when the file was created can indicate how soon before it was used. So if the file was created a year earlier, might indicate somebody's reusing files from previous accesses, previous editing, previous usage. Last access, and this is the information that's contained, can tell you when the file was last accessed. And also what number 8 is asking is sort of backups of the files. List, of course. So the backups and the information of timestamps from backups can also give information when the file was accessed based on the backup times. Because we have only limited information in a file. We have when it was created, when it was written, when it was last accessed. And backup can give you sort of a timeline of times.
Now, is this what's commonly known as an audit log?
You can consider it as such.
And what's the purpose of an audit log?
The purpose of audit log, so somebody at a later time can come in and check if there was any proper use of a system, any violation with the way the system should be used, have been used, detect potential malicious software, malicious files that were modified, general verification of the system. That's why audit logs are used.
So are you telling me that the very purpose of an audit log is so that it can be reviewed?
Well, that's correct.
I'm sorry, your response.
It is correct.
And Don already asked me your opinion as a computer expert. Would granting this request have any negative implications for network security?
No. Again, this is just like 5, asking for just file names, timestamps that have no indication of any data contained in those files.
Now, I'd like to direct your attention to request number 9, which is a request for a copy of the file allocation table on each GEM server, and if not available in plain text file with the following command on each server. And I'm not going to read it, but it's in the request. We need to check various network settings on these applications. This will be a matter of applying Windows operating system settings. Otherwise, please take it.
This request sort of relates to the number 6. For example, Windows event logs can tell you users who logged into the system. It doesn't tell you the username, but that can be potentially obtained. So you examine configuration files in the system. It can indicate how secure the system is. Did any breaches occur into the system? Can give you this kind of information. Again, depending how deep and how much you're allowed to view, you can find out information about how systems work, what has been done to it, and retrieve this information as well that was asked so far.
So you're saying that there is an implication for network security if this request is granted?
If the system is on a network, depending how deeply this request goes, there's potential for network security. If somebody reveals the passwords, somebody gives somebody access to the password files contained on the system, reveal that, for example, there's no passwords, it can give hints to somebody potentially attempting to attack it over a network.
Now, is this the only one of the pieces of metadata requested that whether it's secure or not depends on whether the computer is connected to a network?
Well, if somebody goes in and breaks into the room, it can also give them the indication how to connect, how to access the system.
In your opinion as a computer expert, are there any steps that county could take to minimize the network security risk posed by number 10?
There's multiple recommendations. Those systems should not be on the network. Any system that's connected to the network has potentially security problems, as we found out from many news of people's credit cards being stolen, etc. So if it's connected to a network, it's a security threat. Judging by history. So I don't believe they're connected. They should not be. The access to the machine is physically protected. It should be by, for example, a key card, or it should be locked. So as far as physically going and somebody breaking in, I don't believe there is a security threat, but precautions should be taken. For example, if somebody uses the same password for multiple local system, and it's somehow revealed, somebody types the password, and it is recorded on the video.
Okay, and how about in your opinion as a computer expert, if the county provided a chaperone to make sure that there was no funny business during his checkup?
It definitely is required, and someone has to overview the process.
I'm sorry, what, please?
It is required, somebody should overview the process from both sides.
Okay. And in your opinion as a computer expert, if the county takes proper safeguards, what is the level of security risk posed by the granting of request number 10?
Objection, Your Honor. He's not knowledgeable of what the current system being used by the county is.
Ms. King?
Now, did I hear you correctly that you said that request number 10 could disclose things with regards to passwords in the system?
If somebody's not careful, for example, typing a password can be observed.
Okay. So in your opinion, it would be important to hide the physical screen from the people who are visiting
The
the
passwords are not visible on the screen, but somebody typing the password.
I'm sorry, what?
The passwords will not be visible on the screen, but that's somebody typing it on a keyboard, somebody standing behind that person, they can observe.
So are you saying that the security risks posed by number 10 all have to do with actual people not taking proper security precautions and not with the system per se?
That's correct.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. King.
Dr. Gniady, apologize if I just butchered it.
No problem.
Is GEM software, as you knew it in 2007, was that impervious to being hacked?
I'm sorry, I don't know. Impervious.
Is GEMS hackable? As you knew it in 2007, as you understood it and studied it 7 years ago, was the system hackable?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned in your testimony that some of the information that's been requested by plaintiffs could evaluate whether or not a breach occurred. How could a breach occur on GEMS?
So this is with respect to the system. For example, somebody executed multiple logins, the path can be detected, there was invalid passwords used, so there was attempts to breach the system. For example, from the event logs, you can observe that somebody logged in as one user and issuing different commands in the system escalated their privileges to the level where it can modify any files in the system.
Okay, so in item number 6 that was requested, it mentions the .csv format, and that's a type of, well, what is that, .csv
So
format?
comma separated values. This is a text file, so for example, it will be a username, a file name, set comma, creation date, comma, last access, just the text information of the metadata describing the files.
Okay, and a .csv file can be modified, is that correct?
Well, that's correct.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier on in your testimony that knowing the metadata is critical. What did you mean by that? Were you talking about the end user? Is it critical for a county administering elections using the GEM software? Do they need to understand the metadata?
No, the metadata is critical for system operations. The system has to keep track of the files in the system, and if you lose metadata describing, you lose the files. So it is critical to the system. It is also important for reviewing security of the system if somebody chooses to do so.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned earlier, and again, I'm not sure which number this was in reference to, but you mentioned that the information that was requested would not tell you how to break into the system. And I'm not sure if you were speaking generally. Would that help? Would that help somebody who wanted to break into the system?
So the metadata, for example, file names, etc., it would not help you. For example, in number 10, if location of the computer is revealed, or if the computer for some reason is on a network, an IP address of a computer is revealed, it can help somebody to find this machine quicker.
Okay, and even, and I'm glad you brought that up, you indicated that if properly administered, as you understand it back in 2007,
Right.
GEM should not be connected to the internet.
That's correct.
Okay, but you did mention that computers would be, or tabulators would be connected by modem?
During election day, that's one of the ways that back in dial systems, you could send the data from a terminals in the field back to the GEM system. So modem is basically communication device with a phone number. You would call in directly this phone number, and using computer protocol, you would upload information about the elections.
Okay, and the phone number that each machine is using, that would be metadata.
I don't know where to draw the line at this point. I mean, it's a phone number, just like you have on regular phone.
Okay, now, in your experience with the 2007 GEM software, is that phone number a number that would be, you can find in the phone book?
No.
Okay. And at this point, you're not prepared to say whether or not the phone number that's used in an election by the modem is metadata or not. You don't know whether or not it's metadata.
I would consider it actual data. The phone number used as a part of, because you enter this phone number into the configuration files of the terminal. So if I had to make a choice, I'll consider this the data.
And would that information be recorded in any type of those audit files, or would that be,
I believe not.
but you, I mean, again, from your understanding from GEM software of 2007,
I don't believe it is recorded, the phone numbers. This is, the phone numbers are entered into remote systems. They're not part of the GEM's log file.
They are not what?
They're not part of GEM's log file.
as you understand it from 7 years
That's
ago.
correct.
Okay. Other than, and would you acknowledge that that is a vulnerability to the system? If somebody had that modem phone number,
Yes.
that they could potentially, the evil genius could potentially hack into
That's
the
correct.
system.
I mean, if you know, a phone number gives you a way to finding the computer. So
Okay.
if you have that information, it is easier to find it and then potentially try to access it.
Okay, and at this,
And then,
Potentially try to access it, hack it.
and at this point, because you're not familiar with the county's current GEM software, or even if it uses an entirely different type of software, you don't know whether or not these requests that have been made by the plaintiffs would reveal the modem numbers or not. Isn't that true?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
I don't believe so, Your Honor.
Oh, well, he can answer.
At this point,
I
it should not be, but I don't know.
Okay. Your Honor, I don't know if you heard that.
answer what?
At this point, depending on how the event logs in a current system for the GEM's audit logs, I don't know, it will contain a phone number. The files in the system, anything else, it will not.
To your knowledge, does the GEM software in 2007 used by Pima County have any other potential vulnerability? To breach, to hacking, or intervention?
I mean, there's a whole range of them. I mean, if you have a physical access to the machine, you could access it, modify the databases. You could modify the vote counts in a field. There's a whole list of them. There's a whole list of potential vulnerabilities in a system.
Okay, and some of them would require a physical presence.
That's correct.
Okay, but there are other security threats that wouldn't require a physical presence, is that correct?
the only one that does not require if somebody uses the tags into transmissions of the votes. But again, that could be addressed by recounting. You know, there's machines in the field that store information about the votes. They can transmit them, and as far as I remember, it's suggested that they should be checked against physical recording of the voting sites,
Of the,
of the votes of the machines.
The metadata, and for the purposes of this question, let's acknowledge, I'll concede that what has been requested is metadata. Does this, could this information, these audit logs, would these be understandable to a layperson?
Objection, we haven't defined what a layperson even is.
objection
Some
one.
information
Just a
might
minute,
be.
just a minute, objection one.
We haven't defined even what a layperson is. People have various levels of knowledge. What is
Okay,
layperson level?
I'll rephrase it, Your Honor, that's fine. Could an average person with a high school education and no programming experience or code reading, could that type of individual, in your expert opinion, understand the audit logs or the event logs to determine whether or not the system has been breached?
Well, it depends what you mean by high school education. Most of the hackers are high school age, so. A regular person not into computers, that information doesn't tell them much.
Okay. Now what utility does this information that's been requested have?
Objection, Your Honor, utility is not an issue here.
It is an issue, Your Honor. The information that's been requested, the audit logs, it doesn't address the audit logs, the event logs. That's all what's happened in the past, correct? It's not going to tell you whether or not there's going to be a breach in 10 minutes, or it has no future benefit. Is that?
Objection, Your Honor, that's a compound question.
Is there any? I'll rephrase it.
Why don't you break it down?
Okay. Is the information that's been requested, as far as you understand the GEM software from 2007, is there any future, can the information that could be retrieved through these requests, could that information predict future vulnerabilities?
It could, based that the system was being properly accessed in the past. There's holes in the security. There's potentially malware, the software that is improperly installed that can give somebody else access. So that's been done in the past. The system can be reviewed for, there's potentially vulnerability issues, security issues that if used again in the future would have the same issues.
Okay, but it's, okay. And how would malware be installed in the GEM system as you understand it from 2007?
Somebody can bring a data disk in and install it. If the system is
I'm sorry, somebody can what?
on the data disk, CD-ROM, flash cards, they can bring it into a system and install proper software / malware.
No further questions, John.
How long do you think you need for redirect?
No, I think about 5 to 7 minutes, Your Honor.
And then we're gonna break it.
Sure. Okay. So with regard to the 4 kind of potential security issues that could be disclosed through the granting of the audit log, if the county has this audit log already, can they take remedial action Good.
Objection.
I'm sorry.
So if there is a log there, somebody security expert can review it and secure the system.
Okay.
Excuse me, just, Dan, there's a red X on your screen. That problem.
That's okay.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Now, you mentioned that one of the items that's been requested could potentially provide the machine's IP address so that if it was connected to the internet, it could help somebody find the system quicker. My first question for you is, which item of information was that, just so I keep it clear?
So the network settings number 10.
Okay, number 10.
This is just like we discussed reviewing a phone number. It gives somebody basically the direct information how to find the system.
Let's
Or
say,
cloud of computers.
The what?
The cloud of computers.
now let's say that number 10 isn't granted, okay? And let's say that the central tabulating computer is connected to the network. In your opinion as a computer expert, how difficult would it be for somebody with knowledge in computers to find that network information anyway?
Somebody skilled in hacking systems that can scan all the machines, break into count computers, go one by one and find the information. Would just take long.
Okay, about how much longer?
I can't answer this question.
Very good. Now, is metadata, and we've already asked, but just to confirm, since it's a little confusion, is metadata necessary to know how the system is being administered?
The event logs will tell you who has accesses to it, what files are installed. So it tells you, gives you information is the system you is secure, gives you information about administration.
So if you're,
About.
Administration of the system.
so if you're somebody reasonably knowledgeable in computers, you can take a look at that and go to bed, sleep well at night knowing that your election system is secure. You get that event log.
Somebody gets event log.
Or, yeah,
There shouldn't be any security implication beyond somebody having a physical access to the machine, knowing when the users are logging in, spying on their passwords, etc.
so you could take a look at that though as a computer expert and tell this is a more, that, well, anyway, I'm gonna scratch that question. Now we talked about number 6 with the .csv files. I'd like to direct your attention back there. Okay. And you had mentioned during the county's cross-examination that .csv files can be modified. Okay. If the .csv files are delivered to plaintiffs, can they modify those and then feed them back into the system?
Not sure what you mean.
In other words, what would this modification do? Let's say plaintiffs working for these nefarious, evil geniuses of war, and they got these .csv files and they modified them. What could they do with that?
Well, I mean, I can take this thing and cross something over, but it doesn't change the state of the system. This is the file, this file just describes the list of files. If you add the file, delete the file, it will be just your random data you generate has no reflection of the real system. Somebody can regenerate the list of the files and say, look, they don't match. Somebody modified it, made some crazy accusations that are not real.
Okay. So they could modify their own list, but not the county's list. Is that what you're saying? Okay. And when we're talking about, you talk about evaluating whether a breach occurred. Okay. Are we talking about then telling if somebody with physical access breached?
The log files can tell you network logins or physical logins.
Okay. And one more question. So and you already spoke a little bit about how the modem risk could be mitigated. Could you talk a little bit more about how that modem risk could be mitigated, even assuming that it was disclosed?
Well, again, modems are used. The votes are sent to the GEM software and are tabulated, giving quick results. You have physical records, either punch cards or even the data cards at the terminals recording the actual votes. So at some point they can be compared. Somebody introduced different votes in the process of communicating them during elections, they can be verified at a later time.
And what would a nefarious computer genius have to do to use the modem information to introduce extra votes?
Knowing the communication protocol, they can alter and pretend that they are the voting machine and upload information.
Okay. And so with regard to request number 10, that's a vulnerability in your system.
I mean, any kind of remote access is always a vulnerability in the system.
Okay. Is there any way around remote access in the system?
Data cards. So the data cards generated and recorded during elections, they can be delivered in person by a courier, and the votes, all those election details can be read by a computer.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Should this witness be excused?
Yes, could we reserve the right to call him, please, Your Honor?
If he's not excused.
Well, then, you're not.
Okay, so what that means, sir, you can sit down, you need to stay out of the courtroom until you're called. At some point in time, if I get a sense that we're gonna finish and we don't need you, I'll have somebody let me know so that you can.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. For now, we're gonna break until 1:30. I'd like to get started promptly at 1:30. I don't know, do you wanna leave your equipment here? Okay, so we can lock the courtroom, so counsel, if you want to leave anything here, you may do so, and we will lock the courtroom.
Please rise.